Now, rising inflation in a sluggish economy means unions have their work cut out for them. They have to negotiate cost of living increases during these trying times. This will no doubt be the agenda at SACTWU's Central Committee, which meets today. It will be addressed by Cosatu President Zingiswa Losi. Our reporter Monique Mortlock is there and joins us now. Good morning, Monique. What are workers saying? Well, certainly they are feeling the pinch.
Yes, definitely, and this is something that's certainly going to form a central part of this week's Central Committee meeting, and we've already seen workers milling into the venue. But let's jump straight into it, because that address by Zingiswa Losi is going to be taking place any minute now. I'm speaking to SACTWU's Deputy General Secretary, Mr Velena. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's chat about some of the plight of workers. Especially with rising fuel costs, workers are certainly feeling the pinch across the country. Tell us about some of those big issues facing workers at the moment.
Good morning, and good morning to your listeners. Yes, of course, those are very serious issues that our country is facing with at the moment, specifically the workers. You know, we represent workers that are earning almost, very little in terms of the economy itself. So when we see the rise of the petrol and all the cost of living, that is very serious for our members.
And have you found, I know that over the last couple of weeks that SACTWU has been successful in various wage negotiations, managing to get certain increases in the leatherware sector, footwear sector. How difficult have these negotiations or processes become, especially in the current climate and with the pandemic, the impact of the pandemic still being acutely felt? Have you found that negotiations are taking a lot more longer and it's a bit more of a arduous process?
Yes, of course. We ran through, and we are still, we haven't finished in some of our sectors. We did run some of those negotiations. I must say, those were very tough negotiations under the very difficult conditions, exactly what you have mentioned. We are, as a country, coming from this COVID-19 and all the other issues around that is facing the workers. The negotiations were not easy, but we, in some instances, in those areas and subsectors where we have concluded agreements, we can say, as SACTWU, that we managed to, pull through under very difficult times to make sure that we find something for the workers and see if they can have something to live with. We understand that it is not really, enough for the workers to live with, but under these conditions, I can say that we have managed on those sectors.
And what is the aim of this week's conference?
Well, the Central Committee is just to evaluate the work of the organization since the last Congress. This is the Central Committee that takes place in between the Congress. The purpose of this one is to evaluate, to look at where do we come from, where we are now, what are the issues that we need to focus on before we come to the next Congress.
And my final question, the last time that SACTWU had a bargaining conference, you met with the Labour Minister was there, Ms Nklesi, and there was talk of the Labour Migration Act, and there were various proposals and demands from SACTWU's side, from various union side regarding this proposed act. Where are we at in terms of those talks?
Well, we, at that bargaining conference, listened carefully to what the government is proposing in terms of the labour market reforms. And we have made our own submissions. And some of those, proposed labour market reforms are very dangerous for workers. I must be honest with that. So that is why we're saying these are the processes that are currently taking place to see how best we can demonstrate to the government that some of the proposed amendments are very dangerous for the working class. That process is still going on at the moment.
Like which ones?
In some of those issues, they talk to the thresholds in terms of workers when they're working overtime. that when they're earning at a particular level, those workers must not qualify for the overtime. That is a serious thing for us. So there are many of those such issues that we're looking at and trying to make sure that we engage all the social partners at neglect level to see how best we can come up with a very, it cannot be 100% perfect, but we are prepared to work and making sure that workers are not losing what they have fought for and the gains of the workers that they fought for many, many years.
Thank you very much for your time. That was Mr Velena. He's SACTWU's Deputy General Secretary, just highlighting some of those issues that workers will be discussing at this week's Central Committee meeting here at the CTICC, speaking especially about how the rising costs of fuel and just in general the rising cost of living, how that is impacting workers and how difficult it's become to have those wage talks, those wage negotiations for to get the increases that's needed for many workers just to survive.
Very important discussions there. Thank you very much for that update, Monique. We'll catch up a bit later on. That's eNCA reporter Monique Mortlock. Now,